Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Moonbeam Communities. Today, I have here with us Colton, which is the founder of Prime Protocol. You might have seen Prime Protocol in our announcements, which is a very new and exciting project that is going to be deployed in Moonbeam. So first of all, Colton, thank you so much for coming here and having this chat with us. And
yeah, of course. Thank you, Thiago, for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I was reading about Prime Protocol, and there's so many articles, Medium files, YouTube. You guys are creating a lot of content already, which is pretty good to understand, what Prime is about. Now, I did my research, and I bet that people that is watching this wants to, learn a little bit more about Prime. Can you give us a quick introduction, like a couple of minutes introduction of what is Prime Protocol?
Sure. So at a high level, Prime Protocol gets its name because we are a decentralized prime brokerage. And our goal is to be a one-stop shop where you can deposit all of your digital assets into one protocol, and you can receive liquidity on any chain backed by the entire cross-margin protocol. So if you've got maybe some collateral on ETH L1, but you really want to take out a loan on Moonbeam because there are exciting new projects that you want to buy into, we'll allow you to deposit that collateral on ETH, continue to earn yield on that collateral, and then you can take out a loan on Moonbeam. You can repay the loan on Moonbeam, or maybe you have some collateral on Avalanche or another Polkadot parachain, and you want to repay over there. That's totally fine as well. It'll be fully interconnected between all these different blockchains, and you can think of it as one global margin account where everything you're depositing into just goes into Prime, and all the loans you're taking out, all the repayments you're taking out are happening to that same account. So you don't have to worry about bridges anymore or splitting up your collateral into partitioning it into different chunks on different blockchains.
This is amazing because this is the current problem that we have, right? Like when I try to do some DeFi operation, there's always the cumbersome process of bridging the asset from one chain to another, having to, like which bridge do I have to use, because sometimes it's Nomad, sometimes it's others. So
right.
It's a little bit tricky. You can get it wrong in the process, and there's a lot of risk, right? I mean, we cannot underestimate the risk. Of course, we shouldn't overestimate, but we cannot underestimate the potential risks of the bridges, right? So consolidate that is amazing. And another thing too, and I'm probably talking, complimenting a couple of things that you're saying, but one thing that is strike me of what you guys are trying to achieve is the seamless operations. I saw one of the examples, like you deposit ETH in one chain, and this process is like almost like one transaction, or maybe it's going to be a couple of them for approval, all the stuff. But in two transactions, you will have your payments, or you're going to receive your borrow, like in other chain very fast. So having that, I think that's the, for me, it's what, I'm really excited about, having like this operation that is completely seamless and bringing more users, because that's the end of the day, a very big barrier, right? To bring
right. Yeah, I mean, that was something before I started Prime that I was really frustrated with, is I had to do so much research just to figure out how to get capital from one blockchain ecosystem to another more exciting one. And you have to jump through all these hoops. There are all these button clicks. And I think a lot of people are deterred from DeFi because the UX right now needs a lot of improvement. And so that's something that we really want to help fix and contribute.
I completely agree, 100%. That's why this is very exciting. And I'm very happy to have you here and talk more about Prime, because it's also a learning. Now, before we jump in a little bit deeper into it, can you tell us a little bit about the story? How do you come up with the idea, the team behind Prime, what we have so far?
Sure. So I came up with the idea while I was still working at Citadel as a quant trader. I was doing interest rate volatility, trading and research. And I was basically spending all of my time doing DeFi that I had free. So weekends, evenings, anytime I could. And so I was, a DeFi degen, and there were like the main frustration that I had was, coming from a traditional finance background, I wanted to be able to borrow against my whole portfolio, because when you're diversified, your risk of liquidation on any single position goes down. because you don't have to manage a ton of different lines of credit with recourse to different assets. And it's a much better borrowing experience when you don't have to take out 5 different loans on Abracadabra to borrow against your whole portfolio. Because if you get charged that liquidation fee, that's really bad for the borrower. The liquidators love it, but the borrowers not so much. And so I found that I had to be much more cautious to manage that extra risk. And it's really an inefficiency that doesn't have to be there. And I think traditional finance has already learned that it's more effective when you're operating at a portfolio level rather than an individual asset level. And so that's really what I wanted to accomplish with Prime. Is I thought there wasn't anything in the market that was allowing me to cross margin all of my different positions, plus my frustration with the bridges, and Prime Protocol was basically the answer to that. So I decided to start Prime, started working on it end of December, beginning of January. Then we raised some money and started building the team. Now we're up to 9 full-time people, including myself. 7 of us are on the technical side, and 2 people are working full-time, trying to engage with the community, figure out what people want, and figure out ways to get people involved and bring more people into the Prime project. We have a really diverse set of backgrounds, which I think is super valuable. We've got people who have been working in crypto for a long time, are really experienced. Anybody in the community who's interacted with Marcin might know that he's been around for a bit with other projects. We've also got some engineers on the team who are on the newer side to crypto, but they worked at impressive companies like Netflix or Amazon, and have a lot of really strong foundations in computer science. And we also have people who have spent their whole time doing crypto native smart contract development. So I think everybody brings a great, unique perspective to Prime. And the thing that everybody has in common is we're all super passionate about DeFi, decentralized financial infrastructure, making it open and accessible to everybody. And I think that's really the unifying thing that we all have in common.
That is very, very exciting. Just when you mentioned about having a team of 9 full-time, this is huge already in crypto for early projects, right? Because normally they start very small, they have a team of 2 or 3, and part-time, they didn't leave their jobs.
Well, that's certainly how it started out. It started out as me, and then a couple people came on part-time, and then people really enjoyed working for it, and they're like, I got to do this full-time. And then we brought on some more people, and I think the culture really just started to build itself.
Yeah, it's always a good story, right? When you start a project, in this beginning phase, this part-time thing, it's gonna work or it's not gonna work, and here you guys are. I mean, almost, being ready, announced on Moonbeam.
Yeah, getting really close.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. Now, you mentioned a lot of lending and borrowing, right? One of the core products, but there is also a stablecoin, right? To Prime. So should we consider Prime to be more similar to MakerDAO, for example, or Aave or Moonbeam, in the other hand?
I would say it's more similar to MakerDAO, but we're actually somewhat of a combination of the two. And I'll explain what we mean by that. So we're similar to MakerDAO because we have a stable coin that we'll be issuing, so you can get immediate liquidity on any chain. And the great thing about issuing a stable coin is we can make that stable coin fungible across every different chain. So it's really easy to mint on one chain, burn on another for an easy bridge. It reduces your risk because it's not like you're locking tokens on one end, issuing a representation on another, and if the bridge gets hacked, all of a sudden you lose your value. And it also means that we don't have to worry about attracting tons of depositors into the protocol, which allows us to scale a little bit faster, as long as there's enough liquidity in the market. The reason why I say it's somewhat of a combination is we'll be giving people the option to buy our stable coin and then basically turn it into an interest-bearing token and share in some of the value accrual that's happening. So when you take out a loan, there will be a really small interest rate that we charge you. And if you want to be on the other side of that and collect some of the interest, you can deposit some stable coins into the protocol and earn interest on those. And that's sort of like what a money market, like a Moonwell or a Compounds does. And so we'll be facilitating both. And over time, our goal is to look more like MakerDAO. But as we're in the bootstrapping phase, we'll be doing everything we can to make sure that there's enough liquidity in the system and we're modulating supply and demand in the market effectively so that the stablecoin maintains its peg and people are able to take out as many loans as they would like. And the other reason why I think it's similar to both is all of those protocols you just mentioned are over collateralized, which I think is something that's important to mention nowadays. Is when you're issuing a stablecoin, you want people to know that it's fully backed and they can trust it. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that it's completely de-risked, and everybody who's a holder of our stablecoin that we issue is 100% safe.
Right. This is very important, and we're definitely going to touch more on this subject of the stablecoin, because some people, including me, have some goosebumps when I hear the word stablecoin. Yeah. It's supposed to be our safe port, right? Our place.
It's supposed to be stable.
It's stable, exactly. It should be like the stable part of this crazy road and travel that we do through the crypto world, and became one of the craziest thing ever. Now we're gonna talk more about it, but before I do, just make sure I understood. Like, one of the DeFi operations might be I deposit some glimmers, right, as collateral. I will mint the stablecoin, and I can get this stablecoin and put in the protocol, to be as a lender of the own stablecoin, right? So we have more interest. I will probably receive more interest on top of that, right?
Right. So, I mean, it depends on what the incentives look like or how many people are depositing, of course. If a lot of people are depositing, then you got to split the pie more ways, and maybe it won't be as profitable. But if there are fewer depositors, then it's possible that you could make money doing that, for sure. I'd say, like, the main idea behind borrowing in the protocol is if you hold Glimmer, but maybe you want more exposure to Glimmer, or you've staked it and you're earning 5-7% on the Glimmer, and we're only charging you 1%. We can allow for some cool strategies where you're, making a lot of passive income, because we're able to offer you a lower interest rate and pass along the savings of, a stablecoin lending design to the borrower.
That would be a definitely good subject, that we can have in the near future, because I'll be honest, like, from all DeFi operations, the one that it's more a learning curve is the act of borrowing, right? Because borrowing has to be with intent, right? There's not like it's not that simple, the other ones too, but people simplify liquidity pools to the APY, right? It's definitely the right thing to do. Please do not just see the APY. You have to do several criteria, but this is one very good, like, you see a higher APY of a token that you like, this is a strategy, straightforward. While borrowing, there's so many things you can do with it, right? You can leverage your own position by borrowing a little bit of, from your glimmers and buying more glimmers, and it's more exposure to your own token, but you can also borrow to participate in other opportunities and so on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or you could borrow because maybe if we've integrated with Moonwell, you can go and deposit your stable coins on Moonwell and earn a higher rate than what you're having to pay us, which is like a free arbitrage that could totally happen. And that does happen sometimes in DeFi, that you can borrow one place, lend that same token somewhere else, and make a spread and participate in making the markets a little more efficient.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, and I can't wait, to see the testnet and start to try it out, and learn a little bit more. Now, we mentioned about a little bit of both of us, both of MakerDAO and Aave, right? But there's a catch, not a catch, but there's something plus of all this, because it's a multi-chain version of those two projects, right?
Right.
And I think that's a very interesting statement. I see in one of the articles you said the first natively cross-chain protocol. So can you talk a little bit more about the bridge, about this interconnection, between the chains, and how can you make it like a MakerDAO or Aave or lending, borrowing, and stablecoin issuer more as a decentralized and more in more chains and so on?
Yeah, so what we mean by natively multi-chain is that from the get-go, we've built the protocol with the ability to operate seamlessly and interconnectedly on multiple chains. The reason why that's different than MakerDAO or Aave or even Aave v3 is right now when you interact with the DeFi protocol, it really only exists in the silo of a single ecosystem. And so that means if I want to borrow on MakerDAO, I have to do it on ETH-L1. If I want to borrow on Aave, Aave is on a lot of different chains, so some people call it multi-chain. But if I have collateral on Avalanche, I can't borrow on Polygon. I either have to bridge that collateral over to Polygon using some third-party bridge, or I can use Aave v3 to bridge it internally. But you're still moving money from Avalanche to Polygon. What we're allowing you to do is to say, hey, maybe you have some interest-bearing tokens that you don't want to sell because they're great positions. They're like great tokens, but there's more stuff that you want to buy or use that capital for. You can leave all of those different tokens on the blockchains where they originated and then take out the leverage somewhere else. And so the way that we're accomplishing this is we basically, between different EVM chains, have message passers we're working with. The main one is Axelar. There are also some others, like you mentioned, Nomad is one. We haven't built an integration with them yet because there's we need the latency to be a little bit shorter, but they're a great protocol. Layer 0 is another one that allows you to do this generic message passing between chains. And basically, we've built this system where we have the hub of our protocol on Moonbeam, and the smart contracts on Moonbeam know everything that's happening on all the other chains. So whenever you do something on Avalanche, we're telling Moonbeam, hey, Colton deposited 50 AVAX over here. And then Moonbeam says, hey, got it. You're now allowed to loan out 25 AVAX worth of our stablecoin. And by making everything interconnected like this and being proactive about building those connections, if MakerDAO and Aave wanted to do this, they have to rewrite their whole code base because they're built for single chain, and their liquidity calculations don't take into account what's happening on other chains. So that's what we mean by natively multi-chain. And we think that Moonbeam is especially unique as a place to be hosting an application like this, because not only have they worked really hard to make sure they have rock solid Axelar connections, low latencies, but they're also connected to the broader Polkadot ecosystem. So we could make our own parachain, we could build on somebody else's parachain, and then use XCM to communicate and add those to the seamless experience that we're building with Prime.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, because two things from what you said. First, it looks like Moonbeam is going to be like the accountant, right? Like
Yeah.
all your transactions to Moonbeam, and the branch in Moonbeam will say, okay, got it. Let me put down my ledger. I know how much Thiago borrows or lends,
Yeah.
he has in collateral. So I have my address, it will be connected, interconnected, it will be one per entity, right? All addresses that I have in all the chains, it's going to be like one entity for the Moonbeam's accountant guy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And the other thing that was, I think was pretty cool was when you said about the other projects, like they call themselves multi-chain, and they really do, right? But they are positioned in multi-chains, but they don't behave like a multi-chain, right?
Correct.
I think that's what really strikes me. It's having the same protocol in several places, but it's like saying like McDonald's, it's all over the place, yes, but McDonald's also integrates and sending the same burger to everybody, and I think that's what it's missing, is having this interconnected chain where, it's kind of the same owner for all of it. It's not a franchise, because I think that right nowadays, it's really hard to mitigate all risks, because you have to do some palliative corrections in your code to make it work, in this multi-chain world, right?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is, like, taking the McDonald's analogy a step further, is if you're in a McDonald's store, maybe you need to like go downtown later today. you can place an order that you can pick up at a different store at a different time. That's basically what we're enabling. So it's not like each shop is operating independently. They're all connected. You can pick, I'm at this store, but I want to walk up a few blocks to the McDonald's on that corner. That's like closer to my final destination, and you'll be able to do that.
That's a very good example. I think it's pretty clear. So coming back to the stablecoin part, like, can you tell us a little bit more about the stablecoin, the overcollateralization? What does that mean? So people that has goosebumps about stablecoin can be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, of course. So our number one priority with the stablecoin is to ensure that it maintains its peg and that it's fully backed by valuable collateral. So if you hold the stablecoin, there's no question that what you're holding is valuable and worth $1. I think the reason why people will get goosebumps now is because there were other protocols that promised that their coin was worth $1, and they had absolutely nothing backing it up other than public belief. And as soon as people started questioning, hey, is this thing actually worth $1? The price is starting to move. The whole thing falls apart because it was big house of cards. Fully collateralized means that if you want to mint $1 worth of stablecoin, you have to put down $1.50 worth of Glimmer, for example. And that means that even if Glimmer went down in price a little bit, there's still more than $1 of Glimmer in that borrower's account that's backing the stablecoin. So if the borrower decided not to repay their loan, we could sell the Glimmer and then recover that dollar to cover that loan that was issued. So that's what over collateralization means. And we'll be doing a lot of research and diligence to make sure that those LTV ratios that are initially set in the protocol are adequate to make sure that the stablecoin will always be worth $1. And you can imagine that different kinds of collateral you probably want to have different LTVs for. If it's a stable coin, you can have a really high LTV. So one thing that we advertise on our website is up to 11x leverage. And the way you achieve that is you deposit a stable coin interest-bearing token. You can borrow like 90% against that. And then you can take those proceeds, get more of that stable coin interest-bearing token and deposit it again and basically loop it. But for something that's more risky, like if you're holding Avalanche tokens or if you're holding Glimmer, that moves around a bit more. So you need to put up a little bit more as collateral. We also have, I'm not sure if this was what you were asking for, but we've got a lot more ways to stabilize the value of the stablecoin other than just saying it's backed by something somewhere. Because there are a lot of short-term supply and demand things that can change, and you need to be able to accommodate those. So we will have dynamic functions in place in the smart contracts to make sure if the stable coin is short-term starting to dip below $1, we'll bump up interest rates a little bit and we'll stop issuing as many new loans in order to make sure that demand goes a little bit higher, supply doesn't grow anymore, and the stable coin can stable out. We will put caps on interest rates so that people aren't surprised by the amounts of interest they're being charged, because we want to be borrower friendly at the same time. But we've got a lot of monetary policy mechanisms to make sure that over both the short term and the long term, we're pegging the value of the stable coin. And I think we published a Medium article about this if you want to go read more about it.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I give you the link and I'll make sure to post it in the description down below. But I think this is pretty interesting. Like I didn't, when I think about depegging, right? Where do you see the depeg? Is from an Oracle based information? Because I imagine that, for example, if I go to one of the DEXs that we have in Moonbeam, SwapSwap, for example, and there is a pool over there of more stable coin in USDC or whatever, they can depeg themselves, right? Because it's just the mechanism of their pool. But what you guys do is look in the Oracle, because I think that's where you get information from. I'm like for a non-tech.
Yeah. So basically, we look at an Oracle to figure out whether it's depegging, And the way that we're doing, looking at the price of the stablecoin, is we're basically aggregating across the centralized exchanges that it'll be trading on and the decentralized exchanges. What's the average price across multiple blockchains and exchanges? And based on that, we'll make a determination. Okay, it looks like it's slightly above $1, so we want to like lower interest rates even more, or maybe it's slightly below, so we want to bump it up 0.5%. And so that's basically what we're looking at. Chainlink is one solution for pricing, but the thing about Chainlink is they have a lot of requirements for amounts of liquidity that's already in the token that's being traded. So ultimately, it would be really cool if our stablecoin was featured on Chainlink, but on day one, it won't be because we have to build it up to a certain level before they'll onboard it. So we'll be using alternative oracles that allow us to basically customize the data feeds that we want to be using, so we can make sure that the price is as accurate as possible.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty easy to understand. I hope the guys that are watching us really understands too, because it's pretty clear. And I imagine that that's the process that centralized exchanges go through, right? Like that's where they get their information from as well, right?
Well, centralized exchanges, like when they give you a price for a token, what they're basing it on is what's the highest bid and lowest ask for that token. So you've got people like who are actively trading on KuCoin, and somebody's willing to pay 99 cents for the coin, and somebody else is willing to sell it for $1.01. And the reason why they're charging you a spread is because they're trying to market make and make money. And so you'd say, okay, the fair price is probably somewhere in the middle of those two.
Okay.
And that's usually how centralized exchanges will give you their prices. The other thing you can do is just look at what was the last level it traded at, which is the second way of determining price on a centralized exchange. So if the last transaction happened at $1, then you could say, okay, we think it's probably like most recently worth $1. And if that happened recently, that's probably a fair estimate of value.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. So they are kind of their own database, right? Like
exactly. They're like their own data source.
Data source, yes. That's cool. Okay. The other questions about Moonbeam. You mentioned a lot about Moonbeam. It's going to be our accountant in Prime Protocol. Why did you choose Moonbeam?
Well, there are a lot of reasons for choosing Moonbeam. One I sort of already touched on is that they're very connected to a lot of other EVM blockchains, and they're also inherently connected to the whole Polkadot ecosystem. So they provide this really unique nexus point where we can put our protocol on all these different EVM blockchains and on different Polkadot parachains and have them all be interconnected in a low latency, cost-effective way. So, and Moonbeam is one of the only blockchains out there that's positioned to be that nexus point. We think the team is amazing. They've been super supportive of us, and we're also really excited about the ecosystem that we see starting to grow on Moonbeam. We think they're just getting started, and there's a ton of potential, and we really want to be a part of that. So I think like all of those factors were really big for us when we were considering like, where do we want our home to be.
I couldn't agree more. I was discussing that the other day with other couple of projects. Like a Friday night, having some beer, chilling, and all this stuff. We were talking about the Moonbeam team, and I'm not gonna mention too much because I'm here as the Moonbeam communities and doing some advertising for Moonbeam. I don't think it's needed, but it's really cool to see the Pure Stake team, like how they behave, the not the over promises or anything like that. They really deliver. They are really delivering a lot of value, to the Polkadot ecosystem. There's so many good things to talk about, the project itself.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good operation they got going there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are definitely excited to see Prime. Can you tell us a little more what are the next steps? What can we expect next?
Right. So right now, we're heads down putting some final touches on a lot of the engineering and features. once we've made sure everything is in, a state where we feel comfortable sharing it with the broader community, we'll release a test net for people to play around on. We'll also be going through audits over the next few months to make sure we're totally secure. After the audits are done, we'll do some bug bounties and then mainnet release. Because it is a much more complicated protocol and something that people haven't really done before, the audits will take a little bit more time than is typical for just a typical Compound or Aave fork. But we think that the extra time will be well worth it, because we want to make sure that the security is airtight. And like you had mentioned earlier, bridging is definitely scary, and cross-chain communication is sort of similar to that, and making sure that everything that we've done is going to help people sleep well at night. We want to make sure we are like leaders in how seriously we take the security of our protocol.
That's very important. That's very important. And I'm sure, that taking time to this process, it's definitely a relief. Like, I hate those projects that say like, I'm going to launch as soon as possible, and we test as we go, but we are the person, we're the samples, right? Being
right. Yeah. Once you go live and you take like real people's money, like you're not testing anymore. Like, that's the real deal, and you're accountable from day one. And so I think it's really important to treat it that way.
Couldn't agree more. Now, the project is still in very early stages, right? You guys are still in the smart contract audits and having all this part done. So what the community can do to support you, how can they be aware, maybe join the Discord, what they can, if they want to be like early in this process, and everything, and grow with Prime, what can they do about it?
Will definitely follow us on Twitter and join the Discord are the two most important things, and participate in everything that we've got going on in Discord. We'll start doing more and more, like ramping up towards testnet, but I think now is the best time to get involved. If you have questions, definitely go and ask them in the Discord, get to know other community members. And once we have opportunities for other people to contribute, whether that's with community building, or if you have ideas for new features, or contributing directly to the project in other ways through content creation, or maybe even joining the team as a code contributor, all of those in the future, we want everybody to be contributing in all of those ways. Right now, the main thing is join the Discord, stay up to date with things. It's very early stage, but I think this is the most exciting time to join the community of a project, because it's the way you can end up participating the most and becoming an integral member. Once we start rolling out programs that are centered around educating other members of the community, if you're early, you can be a key part of that as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the best time to you that is listening to this interview, to join the Twitter, to follow in the Twitter, to join the Discord. Make sure you are up to date, because those are the projects, like we want to follow up, as they grow. It's in kind of early stages, but at the same time, as you listen to Colton, they have a team that is pretty robust, really passionate about it, and definitely going to move forward in the right rhythm, to make sure we have a good product. So this is the right, the right project, the right video for you that is watching, and making sure that, you join all the channels. Colton, one final thoughts or final words to the community?
Well, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you are as excited about Prime as I am. Definitely get involved, reach out to us on socials, and stay tuned, because we're going to have more exciting updates coming out soon.
That's amazing. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Colton. I know that our community loved it. Please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you like the video, and follow them in the social media. I will make sure to put all the links down in the description below. Again, thank you so much, Colton.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.